It doesn't matter whether you call it Passover or Pesach. One thing is for sure, the 8-day-long holiday celebrated by Jews every spring can be mighty confusing. What exactly is Passover? Why does the holiday involve so many restrictions? And why on earth would anyone want to eat matzah when freshly baked bread tastes so much better? The answer is simple and complicated all at the same time. Passover commemorates the exodus of the Jewish people after over 200 years of enslavement by the Egyptians centuries ago. In order to convince Pharaoh to grant the Jews their freedom, God sent a series of plagues throughout Egypt, yet Pharaoh refused to release his legions of free laborers. It was only after the plague of the firstborn, where the eldest in every Egyptian household died, that the Pharaoh decided to free the Jews, ordering them to leave immediately. Having no time to even let their bread rise, the Jews rounded up their families and possessions, leaving Egypt and bondage in their collective rearview mirrors. Their unrisen bread baked into matzah in the hot desert sun, and today, Jews worldwide eat matzah for their entire Passover holiday to commemorate the Exodus, a defining moment in Jewish history. The observation of Passover includes the prohibition against eating any leavened products throughout the 8-day holiday. Jews worldwide clean their houses and kitchens scrupulously, ridding them of even crumbs of the forbidden foods known as chometz. Kitchens are ritually kashered, cleaned from all chometz, and ovens and cooktops are cleansed using high heat to remove all traces of forbidden foods, with separate pots, utensils, dishes, and glasses used for the whole holiday. All Passover food requires rabbinical supervision to ensure that it is chometz-free, with even cakes and cookies created using a specially approved Passover flour. Jews of Eastern European descent also refrain from eating rice, corn, and legumes throughout the Passover. There are many people who prefer to be extra scrupulous regarding their matzah, choosing to eat only shmura matzah, made from wheat that has been guarded to prevent it from getting wet from the time of harvest. Traditional machine-made matzahs are square, while handmade matzahs are round with irregular edges. While some have the custom to use ground matzah, known as matzah meal, for the basis of many items, others refrain from eating any matzah or matzah products that are combined with a liquid. Those who retain this additional level of stringency are said to only eat food that is non-gebracht. The first and last 2 days of Passover are all about prayer and quality family time, and are characterized by strict religious observance, where all work is forbidden, as is the use of electricity. While flipping a light switch is effortless, Orthodox Jews refrain from turning on or off all electrical items, and essentials are either left on or are controlled by electrical timers. There is no cell phone usage during this part of the holiday, with no television, radio, driving, swimming, or sports. During the 4 intermediate days of Passover, these restrictions are lifted, although it is still considered an extremely joyous time. Those dietary restrictions about matzah and stuff, those remain in place throughout the entire holiday. Chances are good that you've heard of a Passover Seder, but I'm willing to bet you have a lot of questions. Hang in there, we've got a lot of answers. The Seder is a pivotal moment in the Jewish calendar, an annual retelling of the Exodus, observed by Jews worldwide. Customs vary not only from country to country, but from family to family. In some families, the Seder may be dignified, serious event, while in others, it may be light-hearted and involve props and treats to help youngsters better comprehend the story of Passover. No matter what, a Passover Seder is never short. It can be long, or it can be really long. And despite the late hour, children of all ages are active participants in the goings-on. In addition to a formal retelling of the Exodus story, read out of a Haggadah, the Seder is full of rituals and symbolism. Pillows may be brought to the table and placed on participants' chairs, demonstrating that on the first 2 nights of Passover, every Jew is considered to be royalty. Married men may don a white robe called a kittel. Wine or grape juice are drunk at 4 specific times during the Seder, and there will be lots of hand-washing, singing, and animated discussions about the Passover. The Seder table contains many traditional items, and should be set with a wineglass, a napkin, and a Haggadah for each person. Other items to be placed on the table are a platter bearing 3 matzos, covered with a cloth, and an extra bag or cloth for a special matzah fragment to be hidden during the Seder, a bowl of salt water, and an extra goblet for the prophet Elijah, who visits every Jewish Seder in spirit. The Seder plate is the star of the show and bears several symbolic foods. Imagine the Seder plate as the face of an analog clock, with most items placed around its outer edge. A shank bone, representing the special Passover offering brought to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, is situated between 1 and 2 o'clock. A brown condiment called charoset, reminiscent of the bricks that were produced by the Jewish people during their enslavement, sits between 3 and 4 o'clock. A portion of bitter lettuce is placed dead center on the Seder plate, with a serving of horseradish at 6 o'clock, both symbolizing the hardships endured in Egypt. A boiled potato, to be dipped into salt water, representing the tears shed during the long bondage, is placed between 8 and 9 o'clock. A roasted egg, commemorating a traditional sacrifice brought in times gone by, is placed between 10 and 11 o'clock. Every family has their own customs for Passover. Some will have one Seder plate for the entire family, while in others, every adult male may have his own. And the same holds true for matzah. There will be copious amounts of wine or grape juice consumed, and be prepared for some families to use large quantities of matzah and lettuce, and for requests for more eggs, potatoes, charoset, horseradish, and even extra Seder plates. There are lots of interesting parts to the Seder, which will include Hebrew, Aramaic, and English, and begins with an invitation to the poor to come join the festivities. Then, ritual hand-washing and the asking of 4 questions, typically by the youngest person present. The middle matzah is broken in half, with one piece placed in a special bag or cloth to be eaten later, but traditionally that piece is hidden and you can expect kids to dart about hiding the cracked matzah, which they then hope to ransom later from their father or grandfather for an awesome prize. Everyone recounts the story of the birth of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then the historical narrative of the Jewish sojourn and enslavement in Egypt, and how God appeared to Moses and instructed him to lead the Jews out of Egypt. The narrative discusses the 10 plagues that befell Egypt until Pharaoh agreed to let the Jews go free, ending with the splitting of the Red Sea. This part of the Seder involves minimal involvement from the waitstaff, but stay tuned because all that is about to change. At about this point in time, it could be 45 minutes or 2 or more hours into the Seder, comes a lot of symbolic eating. Everyone will get up and go wash their hands before they start eating what may be serious amounts of matzah, and guests may need their matzah supply replenished. The matzah is followed by a round of bitter greens, and then by a sandwich of matzah, and more bitter greens or horseradish. You might think after all that no one would be hungry, but you would be wrong. Right now comes the time for a beautiful, festive holiday meal with all the trimmings. But stay tuned because the recitation of the Haggadah isn't over yet. Following the meal comes the aforementioned ransom of the broken matzah, followed by more matzah and more wine. As the narrative of the Haggadah resumes, some guests will open the door to welcome the prophet Elijah. Don't worry, no need to set an actual place for Elijah, as he is a mystical guest who visits every Jewish home on Passover. The Haggadah continues with history and praise, more wine, and plenty of singing, which may go on until all hours of the night. Truth is, people are people and we're all pretty much the same, but there are things you should know about Orthodox Jews that might seem new or surprising. For starters, Orthodox Jews are extremely family-oriented, and while the average family may have 2 to 4 kids, many Jewish families are larger, and some considerably larger. Married kids often return to the nest, choosing to spend lots of time with mom and dad and their siblings. Orthodox men never go bareheaded, a symbolic way of reminding them that God is always above, and they might wear a yarmulke, a cap, or even a really cool fedora. As for the women, some cover their hair once married, believing that their hair is an item of beauty to be viewed only by their husbands, and they might wear a kerchief, scarf, hat, or a wig. Also, many religious Jews avoid all physical contact between members of the opposite sex, and also refrain from certain activities in a co-ed crowd, including swimming. As mentioned earlier, the prohibition against using electricity on Shabbat, or holidays, means that it is crucial to leave all lights and other electrical devices as you find them in a guest's room. If a light is on, please leave it on. If something is plugged into a timer, leave it exactly as found. Should a guest forget to turn a light off, they are forbidden to ask you to turn it off, but can make a broad statement hoping that you get the hint. So if a guest says to you, "Wow, it's so bright in here," ask them if you should turn the light off. If a guest mentions that the temperature in the room is warm, offer to turn up the air conditioning. Anytime a guest makes a statement that seems out of the ordinary, realize that they may be asking for your help with something they can't do themselves, and volunteer to do it for them. Notice that the guests seem to prefer taking the stairs on Shabbat or on the holiday? It isn't a sudden health kick or an urge to work off an extra dessert or 2, but rather an avoidance of elevators due to the aforementioned religious reasons. A holiday rich with symbolism and the highlight of the year, Passover is one of those holidays you have to experience to truly understand. We look forward to working with you and to having a successful and joyous Passover with the Prime Experience.